Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel and to the closet that I recorded. I'm only mentioning it because I think it's funny that I, a queer person, am currently in a closet. I had some trouble deciding what I wanted to talk about today. There's a lot of things I could ramble on about, but I don't want to bore someone for 10 to 20 to 30 minutes rambling about my work history or why I'm trans when I'm just rambling. I mean, I will talk about like my whole journey as a transgender person and coming across that identity, but I didn't want to do it today. So then I spent some time thinking about the stuff I'm listening to, which currently is Cass Aris's 40 long video playlist of examining Jordan Peterson, and one of the topics of punishment and reinforcement came up. And that is some terminology I recognize first from, and mostly from dog training, because you have this sort of XY graph of punishment and reinforcement. And you have the positive and the negative, where like positive punishment is adding a negative to it, negative punishment is taking away something good as a punishment. And then reinforcement, when you do positive reinforcement, it is giving something good to reinforce behavior. And negative reinforcement is taking away something bad to reinforce behavior. And all of that boils down to, she was talking about Jordan Peterson's ideology with children. And I started thinking about, well, me growing up. And specifically why I ended up leaving the church. And then more specifically, one of the children's stories that I heard 1,001 times, and what eventually ended up being the question that drove me to finally break connections with the church entirely. And that story is from the book of Job. Side note, Job is spelled Job, but it's pronounced Job. I don't know why, but I literally can't listen to a video if they pronounce it Job. It just irritates me. So, what is the book of Job? The book of Job is in the Christian Old Testament, and it is a story of a wealthy man who ends up losing everything, has some shitty friends giving shitty advice, and then because he didn't actually doubt and curse God, he gets everything back. More specifically, in my translations of the book of Job, Satan and God are just having a chat, and God's like, hey, look at this dude. His name is Job. He has all these flocks and all these kids and a great wife, and he loves me. He's fantastic. He's the best human currently on the planet. And Satan's like, he's only like that because he's got all this stuff. And God's like, yeah, you want to bet? And Satan's like, yeah, I'll bet. Put up. God's like, all right, go do shit to him, but just don't kill him. That's my only, don't do it. So Job ends up losing his flocks. He loses his servants. He loses his wife. But he doesn't lose his health yet, because God's like, don't mess with him yet. Just take away all his things. Job's like, what the fuck? I'm so upset. What happened? God, what happened? I'm upset. What's going on? But he's not cursing God out. So Satan's like, we didn't do enough. Let me hurt him. And God's like, all right, but don't kill him. So then Job gets sick, and he's homeless, and he's got nothing going on. He's just like living under a tree or something. And Job's like, what the fuck? What did I do? All this is shit. I feel so shitty. What's happened? Why is this happening to me? I thought I was a good and righteous man. And his friends come along and is like, well, obviously you did something wrong. And I mean, it gets a lot more complicated than that. The book of Job is very well written. It's like heavy in the sarcasm, and imagery and all this shit, but the friends boil down to they're giving shitty advice because they don't know what's up. And Job's just like, I'm upset. I'm upset with God. I don't know what I did wrong. I can't understand what he's doing, but I'm just upset. And eventually, God himself comes down and was like, how dare you try and understand anything that I'm doing? Yada, 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 yada. Can you do this or this or this? And Job's like, no, I can't even begin to understand what's happening. And God's like, I thought so. Now have more kids and another wife and even more stuff because you didn't curse me out. And that particular book was supposed to explain to us kids why bad things happen to good people. Well, I accepted it for a while, but it always bothered me. And I should mention, I first heard the story in like 5th, 6th grade. So little old me, like 10, 11 years old, 12 at most, is just like, okay, I feel bad for this dude, but I don't really know what death is yet. I hadn't had anyone die on me, so what is death? This isn't important. But then I started getting older, and I just would ignore it. Like, why did bad things happen to good people? I don't want to think about it. Like, what's the point of thinking about it? Clearly, they're the ones that are wrong because they're not Christian. Well, Job wasn't a Christian, but he did follow God, so why did he get punished? Well, I don't know. I don't want to think about it. God works in mysterious ways. He doesn't give us more than we can handle. So says 16-year-old me with high anxiety who doesn't understand why he doesn't feel comfortable in his own skin, why he got so happy when this kind of stalkery boy thought I was a dude and left me alone. Then 18, 19-year-old me is just like, oh shit, why does God allow bad things to happen to people? So what do? I go back into the Bible. At this point, I was super into apologetics, so I read theory. And everything I read pointed back to the book of Job. But I kept looking at the book, and it was like, God only did this as a bet. He did it as a bet with the creature that I had grown up being taught was the literal incarnation of evil. I'm being quiet just to let that sink in a bit, because this all-merciful Father who was supposed to take care of us, take care of me, just let this happen as a bet. And as the Bible puts it, my heart hardened. Maybe God hardened it. I don't know. If a God exists, I don't want anything to do with him. Because the moment I stopped looking at the end of Job and I started looking at the beginning and looking at why Job went through all of this, and it's just like, it was all for a bet. And that's when I noticed other things start falling apart. Like, at the time I was dating someone else who was AFAB, assigned female at birth. I'm assigned female at birth. So I was in a long distance relationship with long distance same sex relationship at that. And the day I went home and went to church after we started dating, I heard my first anti-queer sermon, which shook me. I was like, well, that doesn't seem right. And I went in the Bible and I looked through the translations and I tried to read about queer positive churches, but it didn't leave me that the day I started admitting to myself that I'm queer, that I started getting messages from the church that were explicitly non-queer, the church that I grew up in and that I had been so tightly knit with. And then I found out my youth pastor had threatened his family with a gun. And this youth pastor I had been very close with, he had sort of created an inner circle in my last year of high school. I was within that inner circle. I was the it girl at the time. It was kind of crazy. And I had seen him change one of my former bullies' lives completely around. But then I found out he had regressed. And all I could think about was, did God make a bet? Did he wander down the path with Satan again and say, look at how much this man's life has improved. He loves me. And Satan's like, he only loves you because things are going good right now. Let me fuck with him a bit. And then my pastor took up a gun. After that, I started looking more into democracy and left-wing politics, and I started realizing that all these ideals that I grew up with were very antithetical to what I wanted and to what I grew up believing. Like, you hear about it all the time of how Republicans believe in the Bible, and in the Bible, Jesus fucking went into a temple and overthrew the bankers and tradesmen tables. Like, why are you doing this in the fucking church? You should be helping each other. He took what little food was given during a sermon and was able to multiply it to give to everyone else. His followers gave everything up to go with him, and the early church would pool all their resources together to live together, partially because they really thought that Jesus was coming within the next century or so, but also just that was the doctrine they were taught, was to work with each other. It was very socialist. But then you go to the Republican Party and it's not any of that. So all I could think about was the book of Job. This man that had so much wealth and so much love given to him by God, taken away like a snap, and is like, I don't want to be a part of that religion. So today is a bit of a shorter episode. Not all of them are going to be 20 minutes. I don't want it to be like that at all. I didn't mean for the last one to be 20 minutes either, but those were my thoughts for the day. Book of Job. How fucked up it is that there's these people that choose to follow a religion where God literally made a bet with the devil that they could tear him down. And they killed people. Let me just press that point a little more. They killed his children and his servants and his wife, and then acted like they could replace them with new people. And that's a standard religion. But that's my thought. Those are my thoughts for the day. Eventually I will talk about Q-Force, but not anytime soon. I think I'm going to have to rewatch it if I want to be cognizant on anything. And to close this out, I just wanted to say, learn some new stuff about Minecraft. I can completely hide the chat, so that's going to make making those parts of the videos easier. I am still flattening. It's going to take me a while longer before I can actually start building and be interesting enough for me to talk about openly. And hopefully soon I'll also start talking about my artwork. My last video has had 13 views. That's super exciting. I wasn't expecting to even break 10. So maybe this video can get 15. We'll find out. At any rate, thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a comment, a like, subscribe if you want to hear more of my rambling. Otherwise, I will see y'all tomorrow.